Today, I'm going to be going over my thoughts and impressions on the newly released Aputure Nova P300c. So let's jump right in. This light's been in the works for a while, and it's extremely exciting to see that it's now finally out. I'm sure some people would have loved to see this light released sooner, but it's very reassuring that Aputure took the time to make sure they did this light right. And so far, I would have to say they definitely have. I've heard multiple people say the P300c was brighter than they expected. Even after hearing that, it still surprised me just how bright this light was upon turning it on for the first time. The build quality on this light is pretty much as good as you could ask for. There's nothing on this light that feels chintzy or cheap. While it's primarily a metal construction, there are some plastic parts, but the plastic parts used feel super solid and durable. The optional hard shell rolling case is fantastic. The latches are easy to detach, and the integrated handle extension button is fantastic. It makes it quick and easy to use. Having a solid case with laser cut foam will definitely help keep the light protected and last longer. Onto the weight. Now, this isn't a lightweight fixture, but that's partly due to having its power supply built directly into the light. It still comes in relatively close to the weight of an ARRI S30C. The P300c comes in at 22.8 pounds and the SkyPanel S30C comes in at 22.7 pounds. The P300c draws 360 watts, which is 160 watts more than the Gemini 1x1 and the SkyPanel S30C. But it also outputs significantly more light with that. We'll get to that later. I like that it has an internal ballast as it's one less piece to set up. And personally, I like that they didn't have the V-mounts built into the light itself, but they're using a separate unit to power it. I think this keeps the light simpler and cuts down on the weight. For us, we're hardwiring 90% of the time, so having a V-mount power solution permanently built in would only have made it more clunky, and having V-mounts on a separate unit will help keep the weight down for situations where you have to have the light suspended from something like a menace arm. The power cable is an industry standard Nutric locking cable, which is 20 feet long, which gives you plenty of length for most situations. The controller is extremely simple and straightforward to use. The controller is an all-metal construction and feels very solid in the hand. The dials and buttons all have a great feel to them. The unit has 3 connections on it. The first is the controller connection XLR, which is on the top, and the bottom has a 5-pin DMX in and a DMX out. The bottom also has a nice rubber flap to cover the DMX ports when not in use. The 3 dials and 6 buttons are very easy to use and understand. I'm also a big fan of the 4 preset buttons as they make jumping between your most used settings very quick. Having a power button on the side is also nice as it prevents accidental bumps when using the other buttons. The controller uses the same drop-in style quick plate that Aputure uses on all of their other lights, which is super fast and secure to use. I was super happy to see that the light included 2 cables for the controller. The short one, which is intended to be used when the controller is mounted to the light, and then a longer 10-foot cable for when you have the controller attached to a stand. It seems like a small thing, but it's that attention to detail that makes using this light that much easier. Just like most of their other new lights, you have the ability to use the Sidus Link app to control and change settings of the light. So far, the Sidus Link app has worked very well, and I've had no issues with it. The Sidus Link app makes it super easy to make fine-tune adjustments to the light and is especially useful when the fixture is in hard-to-reach places. The P300c is an RGBWW light, which is fantastic as not all lights like this have both warm white LEDs and cold white LEDs. This helps give you more accurate light when using the light in the CCT setting over other fixtures that are only RGBW. The P300c can do 2000 Kelvin up to 10,000 Kelvin. You also have the ability to adjust the green and magenta shift within the CCT setting, which is especially useful when using this light in environments where you're trying to match practical lights within your scene. Coming in at 9,000 lux at 1 meter at 5500K, the P300c is 70% brighter than the SkyPanel S30C and roughly 67% brighter than the Gemini 1x1. I won't be doing any light tests as I'm sure there are plenty out there already, but with any of Aputure's lights, the quality of light is great. It has a CRI TLCI rating of 95+ and an extremely impressive tungsten SSI score of 85+. For lighting modes, you're given 7 different settings. The first one is CCT, which is for your white light control. XY, HSI, and RGB are all different modes for controlling the RGB of this light. FX is where you'll find all of your lighting effects, of which there are currently 15, with I'm sure more to come down the road with future firmware updates. The next is Source, which has multiple different lights that you can emulate. And finally, the last is Gel, which has 300 industry standard gels. All right, guys, so I wanted to pause the video here because there's one thing I realized I didn't dive that deep into, and I touch on it a little bit at the end, but that's just the difference between the hard light and the soft light, specifically this fixture being a very soft light versus something like the Aputure 300D or Aputure 300X, and just how different they are. And that may sound very obvious, but there is a lot of differences, and they both really have a lot of pros and they both have cons. And they're very different lights, and I think that's important to remember. And the Nova isn't going to replace the 300X or the 300D, and vice versa right now. And so I wanted to go more in depth with that. I didn't get to, but I think it gives an opportunity to do it later down the road in a future video. So if that's something you guys would want to hear more about and would love to see a video on, just let me know in the comments below. And then hit this video with a like. If we can get 200 likes on this video, we'll make a video going more in depth on the difference between lights like the 300D that are a source point hard light versus something like the Nova, which is a very soft kind of panel style light. So hit that like, and if we can get to 200, we will make a video on that down the road. But without further ado, I'll let you guys get back into the video. I really like the slide-in style speed ring they have for attaching the softbox. My hope is that they continue to make and release more attachable modifiers for it in the future. I would specifically love to see a honeycomb grid that attaches directly to the unit without having to use the softbox. It would also be super helpful to have a set of barn doors. Seeing how many modifiers Aputure has come out with for the 120D and the 300D, I'm guessing we'll see more options come for the P300c down the road. Aside from Aputure light modifiers, it's also compatible with other major light modifier brands such as Chimera, DOP Choice, and Honey Crates. The Nova P300c comes in at $1,700 for the light only. If you want the case, you're looking at $1,900. This is an extremely competitive price, especially when you compare it to the Sky panel at $4,700 or the Gemini 1x1 at $2,100, both of which don't include the case. So far, I really haven't found any major flaws with this light. Overall, I think they did a great job with it. If I were to nitpick anything, it would be that there's a very subtle, quiet, high-pitch hum when the fixture intensity is over 90%. Now, I can't imagine this ever causing audio issues, as it's very quiet and you usually can't hear it unless you're close to the unit. This light isn't meant for everyone and is targeted more specifically at the pro level and rental houses. If you're looking at investing into lights and this is your first one, I'd highly recommend getting a source point light such as an Aputure 120D or 300D. While the Nova is great and it has its applications, having a source point hard light can be much more versatile for general lighting. You can always make a hard light soft, but you can't always make a soft light hard. On top of that, you have the ability to use tons of attachments to modify the light. While this fixture obviously doesn't replace a source point light, the versatility of an RGBWW light like this is incredible, and it opens the door to so many other options when it comes to lighting. On specs alone, the P300c is the clear winner compared to other similar products on the market. And the price makes purchasing this fixture a no-brainer over other brands. If you have any other questions about the Nova that I didn't cover, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'm Caleb with Threefold, and thanks for watching.